It's really good to be idealistic, but be prepared to be misunderstood. Anyone working on a big vision is going to get called crazy, even if you end up right.
How do you ensure that that person doesn't then go and misuse the funds? I mean, they may be poor and they may have needs, but what if they go and spend the money on alcohol or drugs?
And occasionally it goes so far at the discretion of the caseworker, direct payments to grocers, so that X amount of shredded wheat instead of X amount of pot is delivered.
No work requirements.
No work requirement.
Which also means that people are free to do nothing, watch Netflix for 3 years.
Exactly. I think most people would find that incredibly boring, but...
There's some really good shows on Netflix.
Oh.
There's a lot of series.
Yeah, we've caught a few.
Spends all of that on the races, and then turns to the community and says, this is the 2nd of January, and I have consumed my year's income. Now, meanwhile, I have 4 children.
There is the general public, and there is skepticism about cash in general. There's also a lot of skepticism about whether people would actually give in this way.
Is that we haven't seen a lot of the negative things that we worried about. If anything, we've seen the opposite.
Oh, I understand, but you and I understand the free market, and that shredded wheat, once delivered, doesn't have to stay in the home to which it's delivered. Let's not underestimate the ingenuity of the poor people in converting.
That's right.
In converting what they get from the relief worker to what they want.
That's true, but I think
that's just wasteful.
Yeah.
So across 19 studies reviewed by the World Bank, we haven't seen any evidence of people drinking or smoking more, right? Which is one of the things that we often worry about.
Well, it's interesting, and I think for a long time we've thought that we needed to put constraints on the poor for what they could use the money for. And the reality is that poverty itself puts constraints on the recipient. If you're living in abject poverty on 65 cents a day, when you get a transfer of cash, your first thought is not, how do I go have fun? Which bar should I go to? Right. It's how can I make my family's life better? And even how can I survive?
Experience shows that a lot of people on social assistance do, in fact, choose to work.
Across 6 studies recently reviewed by folks at MIT, we haven't seen evidence of people working less after receiving cash transfers, right? So those negative things that we were worried about have not materialized.
Why does direct cash work?
Right. So, there's no one thing that people do when you give them money, and that's kind of the point, because the point is about flexibility, right?
Well, I think you're really putting trust into the poor and allowing them to make decisions on their own behalf. I think if I'm sitting in a room in New York or DC or London, it's going to be a lot harder for me to understand what that recipient or poor person needs than for themselves to know what they need.